Pop, pop! Welcome to Video Head Cleaner, where two or more homosexuals take a big old whiff of a movie and will hopefully leave your head spinning. I'm Kyle,
And I'm Tommy.
and as always, there's going to be full spoilers ahead, so don't cry to me, you were warned. If you clicked on this, you knew what you were getting into. We're not going to describe this vaguely. Why would we? So today, we're here to discuss Death of a Unicorn.
Send us hate mail, but just not for that reason, please. Thank you.
I love feedback.
Yes.
We're talking Death of a Unicorn today. It is an A24 film. It has been out not very long at all because this is just early April, and it came out on March 8th, premiered at South by Southwest, and it came out in general on March 28th here.
Yeah. Let's see. Death of a Unicorn. Tell us, Kyle, what is Death of a Unicorn about?
It's an interesting movie. It really has a great cast, for one thing. It kind of purports to be a familial film of connection between father and daughter that quickly devolves into a slasher film and a creature film, if anything.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, exactly. It is, I think, both a slasher film and a creature film. It's a story about a father looking out for his daughter. By ways that are questionable and become impossible to maintain. It is a story of different notions of immortality. There's a lot to talk about. Should we sketch out the general story? Why should we just dive
Absolutely.
right in?
I mean, let's get into
Yeah.
it in this regard.
So, Death of a Unicorn. Clearly, there's a unicorn. Clearly, one of them dies, or does it? So, Paul Rudd and Jenny Ortega. Let's see, their character names
Elliot and Ridley,
are
respectively.
Elliot and Ridley. They are Elliot, Paul Rudd, the father of Ridley, has accepted a new job as the I guess the executive director of a trust, a fund for
He's-
conservation, but
He's taking over, sort of, for what we learn very quickly, is a somewhat dying employer. And
Yes.
it's presented as a great opportunity for him that we later find out might have a little more sinister twist into why it was offered to him,
Yeah.
perhaps.
the dying employer, wonderful actor Richard Grant in this film, playing the character of Odell Leopold, the patriarch of the Leopold family, very wealthy and a little, how should I say? I don't know if eccentric is the correct word, but they're devious, and it comes across real quick. Mr. Leopold is a dying man with great ambition and one might say avarice, hunger. He is positioned as a capitalist villain and is right, but he is Paul Rudd's new employer, and in Paul Rudd's in this character's opinion, his one great chance at becoming immortal in a way, right? Paul Rudd's character was named Elliot. He's
Let's not
looking
jump
out
too
for his
far ahead
daughter.
quite yet, though,
Oh,
because
yeah,
the
sorry.
opening scene is frankly one of my favorite things to happen in the movie. It gives you a really quick laugh,
I was gonna say,
but it also
I've just forgotten about the basic name, the namesake of the film. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
we didn't even get to
yeah.
see the unicorn yet.
Yeah. Well,
it's,
that's our episode. Bye. See you later. Yeah.
it starts off with them out in the airport, and they've just landed. They're waiting to taxi to the gate, and it really does one of my very favorite things in movies, which is a fun, subtle foreshadowing that also kind of that you can tease out to really just show as a motif through the whole film, where Jenna Ortega, Ridley, is falling asleep and puts her head on Paul Rudd's shoulder, and Paul Rudd happens to drop his work dossier, and it's just out of reach, and so he has a choice to make. Do I have this sweet moment with my daughter? It's great. Or do I try to get my work thing? And he's reaching his foot out, he's reaching, and ultimately he says, fuck it, I'll reach for it. And then he reaches down, grabs his work document as Jenna's head slams on the armrest, and it very cleanly illustrates how she's been hurt by his obsession with work in this case, and how he's going to prioritize work over family, and how we see that play out throughout the film. And I thought that was a very clever bit of just a way to open in a very quick scene that is better caught on a rewatch, perhaps, if you're not fully looking for something like that. But
Well, and I would show, and even more so, it shows him trying to balance these two and trying very hard,
absolutely.
kind of desperately, and failing and failing, and it's just he's trying hard, but yeah, like not only does it show him maybe prioritizing, but it shows the danger of n- not erring on the right side, really. And again, this is a theme that is very prevalent in this film. At any number of times, they have the opportunity to, well, as they're driving into the woods,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
they
the very next scene, you see this exact same thing happening. He's trying to balance this by his daughter's clearly not very happy to be there. They're talking, and it's a bit of a strained relationship type thing. It very much sets the stage for the film. And at any chance, which happens about twice in that scene, whenever work calls, he immediately stops what he's doing, doesn't really care about her, doesn't put that off. It's just right to work. And he's like, hey, be quiet over there. Work is talking.
Mhm.
You're nice and all, but that's not really what I'm here for. You're here as my set piece, my daughter, because as we find out, they want her to be there as they want to see him with his family. They want to see how he interacts there, and not
and
just a work guy.
and once again, competing pressures, right? He's taking a work call while also dealing with his ever more irritated daughter. He's trying to balance these two. He doesn't really err on the side of his daughter. And once again, we have yet another disaster. It was a small, funny one in the first opening scene on the plane, but now they hit something. You know, they drive through the woods. And you think, oh, well, it's a deer. It's a
Right.
deer. It happens. That's sad. But
They're going along. He's blown his nose. He's got allergies, and this is not mean to say this is a part of the film. Jenna Ortega has acne, and what's going on? Just kind of they clearly display that to a point, and it all comes to a head. Yeah, when he does get the one work call and is trying desperately to get them to be back on the line because they're like, "Hey, you're late," because of the taxing the plane and whatnot. And he's very profusely apologizing and takes his eyes off the road between a grumpy daughter, the work call, and being in a place where they do put a little cute bit of foreshadowing in the sign of the Banff National Park where there are endangered or rare species here, and hey, don't kill them. Uh, but yet,
yeah, yeah.
all of a sudden, a unicorn pops out and they hit him with their car.
Yeah, and distraught for sure. But I think Elliot, Paul's Red character, is looking to handle this. I don't know if it really is phasing him as much. It definitely bothers Ridley, Jenny Ortega's character. They put in their trunk, I believe, and they make their way.
Well, let's not skip
yeah.
past something that's the most upsetting part of the film, frankly.
Yeah.
Because they get out, and Paul Rudd, being the more adult, the more incredulous person, as opposed to his art major daughter, who has perhaps he's a lot more jaded to the world. And so, whenever they get out, and they're like, "What did we hit?" He goes over, and they walk over, and Jenna's like, I believe this is the exact line. That's a fucking unicorn. And Paul Rudd's like, that can't be true. That's just, I don't know what this is. That's not a unicorn thing. And as he's going back to the car, I think to check on it or whatnot, Jenna Ortega leans down and more closely is sort of inspecting it. And she feels a call. She feels a call to sort of touch the horn of this unicorn. And it takes her on some sort of psychedelic drug trip communion with the universe type situation.
Yeah, we are radically expanding the folklore about unicorns in this film for sure. They're no longer just neat, cool, mythic animals. Oh no, they are conduits of cosmic knowledge and energy. They are one with the universe and are perhaps the universe themselves. I don't know, but this is definitely something. I'm trying to think of any other big expansion of the unicorn mythos. This is kind of new, I think.
I haven't heard a lot about them
Yeah,
yet,
they're-
frankly.
They're definitely doing some world building
they're
with
very-
this, but apparently unicorns, and especially by way of their horns, tap into the cosmos. And Jenny Ortega Ridley catches a glimpse of this.
And as she's doing so and is really getting into the moment and feeling a wonderful sense of bliss and meaning and whatnot, we're really yanked back to reality by the squishing of blood because Paul Rudd has brought the tire iron over to kill the animal and put it out of its misery.
Yeah, Papa Rudd's not done. He's coming back with a tire iron.
He's finishing this job. He started it, and by
Yeah,
God, he's gonna finish it.
yeah.
They both agreed that it was impaired, but it is a moment for sure.
Yeah.
And notably, again, I bring up the illnesses they were dealing with. They get splattered with blood. They are quite covered in unicorn blood by
Yeah.
the end of this beating because it doesn't stop quickly. He just keeps beating this
Yeah.
unicorn.
Yeah, yeah. He's thorough. He makes up for his driving with a very thorough execution of this baby unicorn. Yes. Um, but yeah, and this is a notable plot point. They get splattered by the unicorn blood, and this will be quite meaningful in just a bit. So they put the what they think is the now dead body of the baby unicorn in the trunk, and they proceed to the Leopold Manor to
Oh, was the movie not over? I thought the unicorn died. Isn't this what?
well, that's our show, everyone. Tune in next time. No, they try to brush that one off and proceed to the manor, and that concludes Act One, as it were. And so they arrive. They're meeting the family. Elliot's trying to nail this interview.
They're late. He pulls in a
yes.
fucked up car,
Yeah.
much to the servants' confusion, disgust. I don't know, as the rich
Dismay.
people, and they
Yeah.
pull into this beautiful lot with all these other rich people cars about, and then they pull in their smoking shit heap with a dead animal in the back, which they don't know about. The rich people don't at this point, mind you. They're trying to clearly downplay that and not tell him about it in this sense.
Yeah. Kind of a weird icebreaker for sure.
But Jenna's really shaken up by this, Ridley in the film, and it's clearly picked up on by just about everybody around her. Everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Are you all right?" And she's not. Spoiler, but
understandably, Elliot, Paul Rudd's trying to put a good face on and go about a major life-changing moment, really, a major career moment. What he hopes will secure his future, his daughter's future. One thing to note is that the background is that Elliot, wife, Ridley's mother, dies, I guess, somewhat recently, and it's kind of a catalyst for them moving to the woods and the mountains, and this career move on the part of Elliot. But it sets the stage for a moody Ridley and tension between the two already, for sure. So yeah, anyway.
I don't know that they live up in the woods. They're visiting this mountain home of the people, but they definitely have their life has changed drastically since the mom was in it, because she's portrayed in all of the little flashbacks or the looks as, perhaps the connector of the family, the one that made it all work, and the more loving one or caring one, perhaps. And Paul Rudd tries to care through Jenna Ortega to Ridley's character more through taking care of her in the financial sense, more than the actual emotional or listening type situation.
Yeah, it is. It's what he has concluded is the utmost priority, and to which he sacrifices a lot, like his just basic ability to understand what is happening around him, and especially with his daughter, as we discover.
And he very clearly states it on the car ride in and stuff. He's like, this is going to set us up. Like, this is the thing. We just have to get through this. And so when we talk about him trying to put on a good face, he's like, oh, wow, we're happy. We need to do this. This is going to be good for us. While Jenna has the horrible shell-shocked, blood-spattered face covered coming through the door of a...
He is decided and determined, and not even a dead unicorn is going to derail him if he has anything to say about it, for sure. And so he finally meets face to face with the patriarch of the Leopold family, Odell. He is an aging and ailing man.
He's first greeted by the son, this charming... what do we even say about the son there a bit? But he's a nepo baby. He's just a rich boy he's very affable, but he's not.
He's a clueless dandy. He's a trust fund baby. He's as such kind of obtuse and a kind of, I don't know if nasty is the right word, but spoiled. He's kind of spoiled. maybe a bit rotten. In
We
fact,
certainly see more over time as he
yeah,
develops that the lovely, charming, affable on the surface stuff is just the tip of him in this
yeah,
regard. But yes, and then quickly thereafter, I mean, we see him, and he also is happily ordering around the servants. One of my favorite bits of this entire film is how he just yells for one of the servants, for Griff, Griff,
yes,
Griff, played by Anthony Carrigan, who most people would probably know, if anything, as NoHo Hank from Barry.
yeah,
A
yeah,
lovely man, yeah, who's a very striking look because he has alopecia and whatnot, and who, frankly, doesn't have a ton of lines in this movie, but he does great silent acting by reacting to all the rich people ordering him about.
yeah. He's great being just utterly put upon as a hopeless, downtrodden servant of these people in this family. But yes,
But then, yes, we're on to the rich people. Taya Leone's character, Belinda, comes in, I believe, first, just to kind of like set the scene, because then, yes, the older man, Odell, is kind of wheels in, or is on a cane, I forget necessarily. But yeah, he is on death's door, as it's
yeah,
quite apparent.
yeah, and I'm trying to let's see, remind me how do they divulge that they how does this family find out that there's a dead unicorn in the trunk of a vehicle outside and
It starts to, well, they're having the discussion. They're trying to get right into business, or at least Paul Rudd is, and they're trying to make greetings and whatnot. But as this scene is progressing, the unicorn starts to make noise in the car. They see the car rocking.
that's
Jenna
right,
Ortega's
yes,
character looks outside and is like, what is that? And then as it goes further, the harsh German servant woman who gives big Trunchbull energy is noticing it more and more out there.
yes,
And so it's to a point where they can't hide it anymore. Everyone in the house is curious what's happening. And so they open the door, they go out, and in perhaps our first creature film sort of scene, a hoof just bursts through the window, and it gets a little spook in there, mind you, and it's about to break out, frankly. It's going, it's getting scarier, and then Trunchbull, servant lady, just whips out a pistol and shoots the unicorn in the head right as this is going on. And so now everybody's in on the secret, and now we see what's happening, and they have to start sort of reckoning with it. And I guess we skipped over a tiny bit that's crucial, because we mentioned the allergies. Paul Rudd also wears glasses in the film, and Jenna Ortega gets sent up to her room at one point to kind of like, why don't you go rest for a second or clean up? And that's where she notices where the blood landed. Her acne's no longer there. And Paul Rudd, when he's trying to present the contract, all of a sudden, when his glasses are on, his eyesight's fuzzy. And he thinks, okay, nothing. He just takes the glasses off, puts them aside, but goes on to this day. And then this is where, now that the unicorn's dead there, and they kind of, the rich people are like, what the fuck is this? They're like, oh, I guess this is a unicorn. And from there, they start to discuss, oh, actually, some of these weird things have been happening since this unicorn came into our life, and we beat him savagely to death.
that's right. Apparently, the horn also gives off electromagnetic interference and whatnot too. So there is strange things happening, but the unicorn blood, as they discover, has curative powers, amazing curative powers, just miraculous, in fact.
Which is of great interest, of course, to
Yeah,
our dying character.
yeah.
Who
Patriarch
also, I don't
Odell.
know if we mentioned
Yes.
the patriarch rich person. He owns a pharmaceutical company, so this is of double interest to this man.
Yeah, yeah. The what we first see as a mansion in the mountains is in fact a secret laboratory and pharmaceutical, just like almost fortress. Um,
Because he's tried many cures to date, and he does have
yeah,
people on hand, he can just call up to be like, "Is this gonna work? Is this gonna work? Is this gonna work?" But he's found nothing to date. He's basically accepted it at this point. He is kind of a nicer man at this point in the movie, because he's accepted and come to terms with his own mortality and death. But here, all of a sudden, we have a glimmer of hope, a beautiful purplish blood glimmer of hope, in, in the man's eye now as it beholds.
yeah, and so uh, in what we can see coming, perhaps we have a very wealthy, very ambitious, and very much dying patriarch of this family seizing this baby unicorn, draining it of blood for experiments. They're trying to solve the horn. They're just gonna carve this thing up for experimentation and whatnot. To the horror of Ridley.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
It's still very much shaking her, and I mean, she and now has this dark secret in with everybody, but doesn't quite so much shake the rich people in the other family in this regard because what they see as horrific, the rich people see as an opportunity, and that is a also a massive through line through this film, in the regards that we don't see the world the same as the billionaires often. Paul Rudd's character and Jenna Ortega's are very much the everyman, the middle class fighting to become upper middle class versus you'll never reach my class billionaires that they're at the home of right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So at this point, this is when they call in the scientist type stuff. They're very interested in if this is anything at all. Frankly, they don't know if they can trust Ridley and Elliot's wild fantastical claims or something in this regard. But god damn it, they're gonna try.
Yeah.
And so they fly up some scientists. They fly up the thing, and this is where it sort of turns into the lab, and that's when they start testing the blood and whatnot. We see them, whip out the blood, put in a centrifuge, take little horn shavings, this and that, and the dead unicorn is now firmly a test subject.
Yeah, so we have a moment in the film where it's a bit of exposition. We were seeing tests done. We're seeing this unicorn get ever more poked and prodded and carved up, and growing discomfort by both Ridley and Elliot eventually about what's happening. But that isn't all, right?
It's all
They
turned
run into
businessy
some
too.
problems,
Yeah.
don't they?
While this is all happening, while the rich people and the scientists are furiously looking at the business aspect, the immortality aspect of this all, Jenna Ortega, again, is still shaken. And she, as I briefly mentioned, I think, is an art major in college, which, again, one of my favorite scenes or best things that happen in this movie. At one point, this is divulged to the rich people, and all of their looks of disgust at hearing she's an art major. Paul Rudd quickly pivots and says, undecided, actually, or something. But Jenna Ortega has started to look at some tapestries of unicorns, or just like history. She's Googling about to be like, what the fuck is this? Or like, does anybody know what this is? And she doesn't find anything modern, but she finds a lot of medieval-esque tapestries and paintings about it and whatnot.
Yeah, this is I like this turn in the film. While the scientists are conducting their experiments, Ridley is doing research of her own, and she is looking backwards in time to mythological texts, medieval texts, but ultimately medieval tapestries about the unicorn mythos. And a particularly startling revelation, is one tapestry in particular, which she sees a small portion of at first, but then discovers the entire tapestry and realizes that, oh no, unicorns are not kind, cuddly, happy animals.
That's true. There are
No.
disembowelings and intestines in the tapestries. They're not the most beautiful.
They are, in fact, divine monsters, quite vengeful, and basically immortal. And so here lies the problem for our main characters, is that the baby unicorn has some big, nasty, lethal parents. And unfortunately, that little horn on its head giving off electromagnetic interference is, in fact, communicating, sending out a distress signal.
I don't think we've quite at that point in the film seen the parents yet, but what we do see is some hints about it. We get a POV shot of something racing through the woods. We see an aurora borealis going through it, whilst Odell is figuring out, oh my god, this does work, actually. I'm healed and I'm looking a lot better. And he's starting to pressure the scientist into more of like, well, give me more of this, or let's do a bit more. And I believe Shep at some point does take a bit of the horn shavings, and I forget when exactly in this next 20 minutes he may snort it up his nose like cocaine, but it does go up there, mind you.
Yeah. Again, Will Poulter, yeah.
Which most people may know most famously from the "You Guys Are Getting Paid" meme. He's been in a lot of stuff in various capacities, but
you might know him from a meme. Oh God, I feel old. Anyway, jeez. So yeah, he's snorting unicorn horn like it's premium Colombian marching powder. Meanwhile, Odell is just shooting himself up with unicorn blood like it's heroin. They're just tripping on this baby unicorn left and right. But it has apparently made Odell. It has cured everything that's ailed him. He is out of a wheelchair. He is walking around like a reborn badass. So they are all on board on this terrible scheme involving unicorns, and so they concoct a little plan to use the baby unicorn as a bait. Right? They're trying to
Uh,
lure out
uh,
lure out the others.
let me see again. It's been a minute since I've particularly seen this, but I know at this point, one thing again to mention when Will Poulter's character Shep is snorting it, he gets a bit of the same Jenna Ortega rush of seeing the cosmos,
Yeah,
having a lovely experience, and so for him, it is very much a high versus a bit of a healing situation, and he's gonna snort that horn however he can with a $100 bill, with right off his little wrist there. That continues to devolve for sure. The scientists, notably at this point, also uh, they say many things like, "We don't quite understand how this works. For one, we cannot replicate this in a lab, and this, of course, does not make the billionaires happy." But they're very. It's another matter of realism versus the expectations of rich people, and just saying, "No, just get it done. Like I can throw money at this, right? Like this is going to solve this problem." But the scientists are very adamant, and they're like, "It can't." Which, of course, incenses rich people who can solve most problems with money, frankly.
They are classically immune to any arguments based on reason in the face of their tragic greed and desperate attempts for ever more power. It's a tale as old as time, and it plays out in this as you might expect. Uh,
Yeah, so this is when I think the parents start to get close because they decide to send off the baby unicorn to the big lab for further testing to see if anybody else can replicate it, if they can throw money at this problem and figure out how it's working. Uh, but again, when we see these things, the foreshadowings of what's to come, with the aurora borealis and all that, when they start to take the baby sort of off the property, it's going through a narrow little tunnel. And we see some of the creature movie of this part start to begin because we see the shadow of it when the characters don't. And then as one scientist is facing away and explaining something, he gets a giant ass horn right through his chest.
yeah, this is where we get a bit of both the creature and slasher element of this film, which I personally think is a neat touch. It is a creature film in that you have a group of survivors who are being chased by a creature, and they are one by one getting picked off, and the remaining are doing whatever they can to figure out how to survive. And it's also a slasher film because, kind of for the same reason, you have a group of survivors, and they're being stalked by a mysterious killer. It is picking them off one by one, and slowly they understand the nature of it and how to combat it. And like all classic slasher films, the characters die, and the way they die is according to their virtue or according to their lack of it, depending. Right, and this film it's so precise. It very much is in this classic tradition of everyone getting their just desserts. With the in some ways with the slasher killer being uh, like an instrument of divine
Divine
justice in a way.
justice, yeah,
Yeah,
that's I believe
yeah,
what we talked about
yeah,
before in that regard. And
yeah.
to absolutely key into that as well, part of what Jenna Ortega discovers in her research and whatnot is that the way that the people in this tapestry have controlled unicorns before is a divine, or not divine, a pure young maiden. And that is partially what happened in that first scene with the baby unicorn is that a pure young maiden is what a unicorn may sort of kowtow to or sort of defer to
Is
and
is
be non-violent
is
versus,
drawn to
yeah,
is drawn to. Yeah, yeah.
before, as opposed to, yeah, stabbing people through the chest, perhaps, as we're going to see. And
Yes.
it clearly outlines in the tapestry as well that part of what they're doing in the olden times was they got the pure young maiden to pacify the unicorn. Perhaps that's a better verb in this
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
And then they took the unicorn and decided to get two of them to try to mate or to try to get them to have this limited resource become unlimited. And as we mentioned earlier, it doesn't go well in the tapestry after that, frankly. And in a large, obvious bit of foreshadowing as to what's going to happen in the rest of this film, it shows that it goes, in fact, horrible, and
Yeah.
disembowelings erupt from this decision.
Yeah. So we can just start a body count here. Odell gets stabbed. Taya Leone gets stabbed, right?
Well, we're jumping on that.
Is
Right now, I believe we're just up at maybe 2, 3, because he takes out Dr. Song, the scientist in this case, and he
Yeah.
does stomp a guard.
Yes.
Because we've got, at least from what we could see at the moment, a giant black unicorn with a huge, vicious, sharp, very jagged horn compared to the baby. That's just a more traditional unicorn horn we've seen and whatnot. And then I believe the mom is in this scene as well, the other large adult unicorn in this case. And so it causes chaos because, of course, nobody's expecting for just somebody to be murdered with a giant gaping hole in their chest. And so people are shooting at them. The gunshots are firing at the unicorns. But the
No one ever
unicorns...
expects that, do they? They never see it coming. No.
Some days you expect to be penetrated, but perhaps not in that
No.
hole. The gaping chest wound is not exactly that one.
No.
But yeah,
But, which is actually, I'm glad you said that, because with unicorns, and especially unicorns and virginal maidens, there's so much penetration, imagery, and metaphor, and this movie is just absolutely no exception. The ones that transgress the unicorns are the ones that are violently penetrated, with few exceptions, and those exceptions are the ones who are virtuous enough to escape that fate. For example, the downtrodden servant, he survives. He is an innocent. He's just there to help, and he doesn't do anything, and he survives. Ridley character.
Ridley in this scene particularly, she goes to hide, and at one point the unicorn does sort of defer to her and sort of is leaning down for her to touch the horn again, and she reaches for it. But in fact, is scared away by the gunfire at this point. The violence, the rich people, the other things, the very non-virtuous non-maidens are shooting at it, and so disappears again.
But the ones that cross the unicorns, they get penetrated. There is, I did like, well, I don't know if I like this. I noted this structural quality of it. The characters who don't get penetrated by something in this film is pretty limited, and it's exactly the characters that you expect. It's the downtrodden servant, and it's Ridley. Even Elliot gets shot towards the end of the film. Like he ultimately gets penetrated in a way, right? And again, just in that classic slasher tradition, it's so exact about it. It's so precise about who dies and how, right? They get exactly 100% their just desserts, and not a morsel more, but not any less. So
this is what happens next in this regard. I'm remembering this. They do wound the unicorn, and so I think it was just perhaps one unicorn there at the time, and they go out on a hunting party. And Mrs. Trunchbull gets her big ass gun. And
Shaw in the film, but yes,
sure. She gives big Trunchbull energy. She's a very I don't know if it's racist, but it's a very stereotypical German, no nonsense.
This character is a real stereotype. This was the henchman in Austin Powers. It's that character. This was Frau Blücher in Young Frankenstein.
Yes, that's true.
There's a tradition to this character. This
Yes.
German female.
It's very
type.
that. And so she's leading this hunting party, frankly, with some other unwilling people. Although I guess this is also where Shep, very cocky, confident Nepo baby's out there with his archery. Everybody else has giant guns. Odell's out there now that he's back and happy and healthy again. He's got his old big hunting rifle ready to take something down. And Paul Rudd goes along too, much to Jenna Ortega's protests in this case. She doesn't want her father to go out at all because it's dangerous and he could die, but also maybe don't hunt unicorns, Dad.
Have you not been paying attention this whole time, Dad? Come on.
You're not doing great things here. And so as they're hunting, that is when they think they have this unicorn pen. They're tracking the blood, they're tracking it, and then all of a sudden, with their night vision and their great rich people tools, they're looking about, and they start to hear things, they start to see things, and they realize, oh, this isn't just one unicorn we're chasing here as well. There are now unicorns about, and they fuck them up.
Yeah. They're as it turns out, they're monstrous and big and dangerous and violent and not all too happy about their little baby being first hit by a car, and then crowbarred, and then poked and prodded and bled, and yeah, and they proceed to.
Well, even if there wasn't other unicorns involved, at this point, I believe Ridley in her further research, she figures out unicorns can heal themselves. And so that is when she's like, oh, just don't go after this. That, even if it's just one, that'll probably mess you up. But she tries to text Paul Rudd, and he's too deep in the forest at this point to get it. And so it's a bit too late. The chaos happens, and anybody that's kind of surviving through this starts to scatter back through into the woods. And in rich people fashion, they sort of are like, you guys shoot it, you run, do this. And then they're sort of scampering back to the house. So the core cast, because it is a really small, tight core cast thing, you can kind of tell who's a bit disposable in this movie. They're back to the house, just about. And so we still have all of our main characters alive. To date, we've lost some scientists, some guards, some henchmen, and Mrs. Trunchbull Shaw, German stereotype, does in fact survive as well, I believe, and is back there.
But Paul Rudd being too deep in the woods, that's a great metaphor, right? We started the show talking about this moment at the beginning of the film that was very evocative, and then once again, Paul Rudd, he's lost in the woods, and his daughter just can't reach him. Just she's trying, and it's just good writing. The film has good writing. It's very, very, they're very attentive to these metaphorical elements that, yeah, like it gives what would just be a simple creature film a bit of heart. It's yeah. But
Okay,
yeah,
and
exactly.
I absolutely backtrack on this. I forgot. I think I was thinking a little further behind there. Shaw's dragged off into the woods at this point, and I don't know what we see. But also, perhaps having seen it, perhaps not, what happened with Jenna and the unicorn. Odell does get back to the estate, and then the unicorn sort of bows to him and looks like we're about to have a moment like we would with Jenna and the unicorn and the virtuous maiden that touch the horn, do this or that. And as he reaches for the horn, though, the unicorn, in divine justice, as described, just spears him through the bottom of the throat there, up through the head,
Yeah.
in a truly horrific scene.
Yeah, he gets executed. Like the others get killed, but he gets executed. And yeah, maybe
And it's
the
very
most.
well deserved because I
Yeah.
think we skipped over a scene where they're going through. Because as I mentioned, he was a very cowed and kind of almost gentle, kindly man when we met him because he's accepted his fate. But as soon as he's back up on his feet and getting stronger and stronger and stronger, he is doing things like eating baby unicorn steak. He's calling up his buddies in Saudi Arabia to offer it and all the billionaires that can offer it because he's not going to sell this at a.
That's
It's
right.
not going to the common man. It's not going to go at a low price. He and all of his wife and his son and servants are calling people to hawk this to the highest bidder they can.
We
And s-
forgot about the unicorn steak.
Yeah.
How could we forget about that? Yes, unicorn flanks, and they're just like cutting it like a Christmas ham. Oh my god! And they glow. They have a rainbow glow to it.
It's
just
it's
nuts.
bleak, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's really grim. Yeah,
It's very rare. I mean, it is rare in every sense of the word. This
it
unicorn
is.
steak.
It is. Yes,
It's bloody.
it is cooked to perfection. Yeah, yes, that's right. It gets really quite debauched and depraved.
And we skipped over a tiny bit of stuff in that
at the
regard.
height or low point of the film, for sure. Yeah, we did glide over various exposition, the research scenes, but also the scenes of the family just being decadent and terrible and just despicable.
Really, yeah, like kind of condescending to both Paul Rudd's character and Jenna Ortega's. There's a scene in the hot tub we sort of glossed over where
Yes.
he's like, "Let's go tubbing, man. Let's get in the tub," and he's trying to get Paul Rudd in there while Paul Rudd's just really trying to salvage this whole situation, still make a good impression type
Yeah.
stuff. And then that's part of when they hear the noises, they see the Aurora stuff, and he's like, "Actually, I'm gonna get the fuck out of the tub. Let's go in there." And he also at one point, Shep, Will Poulter connects with Jenna Ortega and is kind of trying to just be like, "Hey, girl, let's you keep doing your art thing. I'm sure that's great or whatever." In the midst of his little drug bender and whatnot. But yeah, we get back to where we were in that sense, and Odell's been gored, and so now the family is shaken to their core because before the people that died, they don't give a fuck about. They don't care that their guard died. They don't care that whoever is gone. They start to say lines like, oh, why don't you go do these things, servants? You're the best person for the job, or even to Paul and Jenna Ortega stuff. But they're all trying to come up with a plan because, frankly, now they are trapped in a creature slasher film. All they have left is this mansion with doors and whatever else they can barricade things with to prevent the monster from getting in, or the monsters at this point, because we've seen now they're the parents. There's two unicorns out here.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
We do have one scientist left. They're not all
Yes.
dead. We have the female Indian scientist. I believe that's Dr. Bhatia. And so she's bringing out the unicorn's, the small unicorn's body out, but it's missing the horn. At one point, that was chopped off, and it is now it's somewhat of a MacGuffin or a whatnot, just a key plot point because it's. As we find out, it's very important for many reasons, but it's been shaved off at points in this as the cocaine replacement, as we've said.
Yes.
We've seen it's obviously important when people are touching it and whatnot in that regard. But yeah, they're trapped inside the house with presumably what these parents want. They want their baby, and so they're trapped in, and unless they somewhat put this out, there's not really going to be anything that has them able to survive, progress, leave, any of these things. It's just not going to go well for them. And so you have at this point the cocaine unicorn horn fueled Shep just rambling off plans. He thinks he's got this. The mom keeps trying to sort of rein him into reality. And he's like, shut the fuck up, mom. I've got this. I'm a Nepo baby with a bow and arrow and a lot of dreams in my, my drug fueled brain at this exact moment. And Jenna Ortega on the other end of the spectrum is like always giving the right advice. She's constantly right in this movie. It's just the theme of it. She's like, I know what we're doing here. Just don't fucking do this. The tapestry says the plan that you've enacted is not going to work. It ends horribly. Just back off the plan. But to that point, they don't. And Shep is going to keep that horn and he's going to hold on to this dream with everything he can, even though he's seen his father just get brutally murdered for progressing down this path. And I think that says a lot about father or son following father type something. Just
Well, and just how rotten that family is. Like each and every one of them, they'll sell out everyone, including their own family. And in fact, that's exactly what Shepard does. Belinda Leone, she gets stabbed through the shoulder in the midst of all this chaos. But Shepard, what does he do? He with his bow and arrow, he has a chance to shoot a flaming arrow at this thing to save her, but does not. They don't want to damage this unicorn at all. They want this unicorn. They want to capture it, and so he just lets it savage his own mother.
Who they just had a very touching scene before, where again she's trying to say essentially, if this is the last time we talk, I want to convey that I love you, and he cuts her off at least twice, if not three times in that regard, again in his addled state, clutching the horn and everything his dreams and hopes are, and just says, literally, shut the fuck up, mom. Like, shut up, I know how to do this, I'm gonna do this. And it is at least a brief glimmer from Tayloni's character where you see something where she both accepts the reality of what's happening and is perhaps thinking, like, let's just not do this, let's not proceed. But she ultimately goes along with it because she ultimately has gone along with her husband's plans and all these things down this.
Though notably, only when she thinks that she could die, and that's exactly how we find Odell, the patriarch, at the very beginning of the film. What seems like he seems like no, he's a decent guy who's sick and he's accepted his face. No, he's the same rotten piece of work that he has perhaps been his entire life. He's just about to die, and now that he no longer thinks that he can die, we see the real Odell. And we were seeing the real Belinda before, and now that she is getting a brush with death, suddenly a change of heart. But it's I don't know. It's one of the interesting things about especially this family that their brushes with death. Are they really changes of heart? I don't know. They're maybe just too despicable to have those, and it serves as perhaps a lesson for the audience, but maybe a warning sign for Ridley and
Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot. Yeah, sorry, I just blanked out there.
Well, it's a
Yes.
perfectly, great point in that. The whole undertone of this movie is a sort of class situation thing, and you hit the nail on the head when you talk about how it only matters when they're dying type something, or perhaps they only see what actually matters in life when they're dying. Because up until then, they're living large, they have no reason to care, They just don't. They don't have a reason to care about their servants or about anybody else, frankly,
They
because they have everything.
in many ways they are unicorns. They're divine monsters in their own right. They don't have to care because they can't die,
They're in rarefied air.
or
Absolutely.
or they think they can't die. And when they think that, we see what they are. And that's in many ways the fear that Elliot, Paul Rudd's character, has. He had a brush with death. His wife died. His child's mother died. And so it's a tension, right? Does that brush with death produce the real you, or is it just a kind of a convenient mask? And that's maybe how we differentiate these two competing families, right? It's, with Elliot and Ridley, it ultimately does serve to bring out the best of them, right? It's not just a mask for them, right? It actually does prompt them to be better people ultimately, and so, in talking about what might seem like similarities between these different groups, also Elliot and Odell, they're both patriarchs of their family, and they're both in their own ways pursuing their own vision of immortality, right?
Absolutely, being set
yeah.
up for life type stuff.
Elliot is desperate for this thing that will make him, live forever in a way, his legacy, right? Or it will ensure this kind of, at least, socioeconomic immortality for his daughter, right? And when he has a chance to get that, it does kind of set him on a path to being more like the Leopold family in that regard, right?
Absolutely.
He is right on the tipping point of returning to being a good person or becoming a divine monster in his own right.
Becoming a sociopath, that doesn't quite care about the feelings of others, as we see Jenna Ortega constantly reflect. I wish you did, Dad. In that case,
and so he's constant, and so that's the balancing act that he's on, and that's the tension that kind of drives that character forward. And Jenna Ortega's character, Ridley, she is the pure virgin. She not only is that in regards to the unicorn, but she saves the day, and she saves the day by doing the right thing, not by doing the wrong thing. Like she does it by fighting for what's right and good. She is a pure heroine in that regard, like just through and through, right? But also in some ways, again, it's a slasher film, so who's the final girl? Well,
and speaking of slasher film, we did skip over, frankly, one of the more gruesome deaths as well in this. The last remaining scientist doctor at one point, she does help Paul Rudd's character sort of swap the horn out. Will Poulter's character, Shep, thinks he has it, and he's clutching it for dear life and whatnot. But in a moment of clarity, and especially seeing everyone around her, including her co-scientist and co-worker, die, she says, take this horn. The rich people are not going to look out for you. They may say this with their words. They don't care about you. They don't. And it's very well shown to be true. And a great noble act, but also she is gored and torn literally in two by the parents at one point.
And which is a great, it's a metaphorically appropriate way to die. Her conscience is torn in two about what she's doing, and then what she ultimately realizes she has done. And then the unicorns just kind of fulfill that physically, right? And again, just in great slasher tradition, she gets her just desserts through and through, and exactly, like, just metaphorically perfect as well. So yeah,
that was mind blowing. I appreciate that. that's some spot on analysis, sir. And so, but talking final girl, we're really down to three characters now. At one point, they do send out Anthony Carrigan's character, Griff, to go. They say somebody has to go undo the gate, something. They do try to take the baby unicorn out, which is where Dr. Bhatia dies and is taken out. She's trying to fulfill that part of the plan because the rich people say, you go do that part, and then you go open the gate. And he's like, why? Why the fuck do I have to open the gate? I have a kid. And the rich people say, you have a kid? Or like, you have kids and a family? And it's like, I I've worked for you for so long, like you don't know this about me, and he's clearly pushed over his breaking point because, as we mentioned, he's done a great bit of silent acting to date, where his face just starts to become more and more disgusted or rankled with every omelet ordered and every stupid ass thing he has to do for these people, including my favorite line, I think, where Jenna Ortega's just going to put away her stuff or clothes or something, and Shep says, "Oh, Griff will help you with that. Griff loves to do that." Like he just volunteered for every shitty job, including this one at the end, where he now has to go out to the gate and open it. But when he does, he ultimately fucks off. He's like, "You know what? I opened the gate and I'm getting out of here." And so he's gone. Dr. Bhatia is dead, and that fully leaves us with Shep and then Elliot and Ridley, our two sort of heroes in this regard.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose right. Shep is still Shep though. They have a grand final confrontation about.
Oh yeah, not him in the hero. I'm not lumping him in
Yeah.
that category. But in fact, he's become somewhat of a villain because he is a literal drug-addled maniac with a bow and arrow at this point, who frankly has no morals or compulsions of keeping these people around or something. He doesn't care. At this point, he's firmly committed to having the horn. But he does find out around this time that when he opens up his hermetically sealed container, he does not have the horn. And so that sets him off in this regard. And so now he is going after Elliot and Ridley because they're the
Yes.
only ones that possibly could have it at this point, as far as he knows.
Yeah, so he final confrontation grabs Ridley, Elliot seeking to protect her, stabs Shep in turn stabs Elliot with the horn.
Yeah. It becomes a
yeah.
very
So that's right. He's not shot. He's stabbed again. Like
penetrated. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
penetrated,
this goes perfectly
yes.
back to what you mentioned. Yeah, he
yeah, but not by the unicorns, by Shep.
importantly.
But Shep wielding the horn, so kind of by the unicorns. Again, very precise.
And also, it's a bit of
Very
being
precise.
hoisted by his own petard type something when he's
Yeah.
been siding with these people and the rich people, and ultimately we learn, like Dr. Bhatia said, they don't care about you. They're gonna kill you, or they're gonna basically get what they want here. And so you have to take care of yourself. And Paul Rudd, almost surprisedly, does what he does, but then gets stabbed and is like, "Wait, I thought I stabbed. Oh, well, damn it!" Like, and so at that point, yeah, I mean, Ridley is obviously heartbroken. She has had a rough relationship with her father, but she doesn't want to see him stabbed or anything. She was trying to protect him the whole movie and connect with him and whatnot in this regard. But we see that he's down, and so the baby unicorn is over there, and Paul Rudd sort of at this point is slumped down against it, and she's begging him in classic movie fashion, "Don't die, don't die," and he's like, "I'm trying," but in fact, he does go down in this regard, and that's when the unicorns start to come over again. And so when you've only really got Ridley left standing, you've got
Yes, the unicorns then join them and use their amazing unicorn power.
and I guess
save
again
lives.
we
And
keep skipping some of
yes.
the best and most glorious deaths or parts in this.
We skipped a really good death with Shep.
Shep's not completely down after
Yeah.
Paul Rudd stabs him and whatnot. He's still kind of on his feet and trying to survive and do this thing. But the unicorns do come over, and I think he gets a lick in or something. But ultimately, the unicorn ends up facing away from him, and he realizes this right at the end. Here, he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's not a good place to be," as his
No.
head is just kicked off and splattered and exploded. Ultimately, in
Yeah,
this,
yeah, he gets just hard hind kicked, and it's quite satisfying.
And so
for
that's when
sure.
Ridley goes over to Paul
At the end of
Rudd
the
and
film.
sort of, starts to cry and just figure this out because she has no longer necessarily a threat against her in the sense that Shep is gone. Everybody's gone just about at this point. It's just
Yeah,
her
everyone's
and her dying
dead.
father.
Yeah.
And it's a moment that happens in a lot of films. I've seen a bunch of movies lately where it's like, oh no, the main character or like somebody's dead and they're almost certainly fully dead, right? Like I've seen Moana 2 or Raya and the Last Dragon
Yeah.
or just almost too many to count lately where it's just you're just stuck in that moment of oh no, what's gonna happen? It's pulling up the pathos of it all. It's ultimately making you reflect on what's happened to date, their relationship,
Yeah.
and in a movie where things get healed, there's perhaps not the most tension out of any of those things because there's a very clear path to what might be able to happen forward. But he's slumped against the baby unicorn, and so the two things that the remaining characters care about the most are they're dead together. And the horn's still about. It's obviously detached from the baby, and at this point, we didn't really mention that seems to be the source of their self-healing. Because once the horn
Yeah.
has been cut off, the baby is no longer regenerating to a point where it's going. And so
Yeah.
it's another case
Or
of the
it's
rich
it's
people.
greatly weakened. Yeah.
I don't think it heals at all because it's kind of a golden goose type thing. It's instead of the golden goose that I could have lay this forever, regenerate, keep getting blood from it. The rich people, in true fashion, decide to cut it off and take it. They just kill the goose to get the gold, and then they reach up inside its ass and like, oh no, wait, like there's not just gold in here. We kind of killed we looked our gift horse
Yeah.
in the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, we killed our golden goose thing in that regard.
Yeah.
And so we've not seen anything to date like this, but the horn is sort of magicked in the air and gets reattached by the parents.
Yeah. So all's right with the world, but the cops do show up wondering, hey,
Well, the whole thing. Obviously the baby gets healed to a point, but the unicorns start doing this black cloud of like sort of magic because they're very dark-looking beings at this point. They've
yeah.
become monsters further in a way that you wouldn't necessarily see unicorns portrayed. And whenever they do this magic dark cloud above and whatnot, and a sort of channeling of magic energy, they both resurrect the baby and Paul Rudd in this sense, and they become magical, beautiful white beings again.
yeah, which, yeah, and then the cops show up.
And then right at this moment, afterwards, after this magical things happen, the unicorns gallop off, and then the cops show up with a Griff,
Yeah.
Eddie Kerrigan, and then what happens at that point is, Paul Rudd and Jenna are left there with a lot of dead bodies, with stab wounds, and just brutal murders. And so what are the cops to think in this regard? Obviously...
Hey, y'all aren't dead. We're gonna just arrest y'all. Just cause.
We're gonna arrest you and put you... We're at least gonna question you.
They're a bunch of violently stabbed bodies and what's left of them all over the place. So, yeah.
We're gonna try to straighten this out at least a little bit here.
So,
and frankly, for the next scene to happen, I think I don't know if Griff. It doesn't ever show them telling the cops like, "Hey, they didn't do this" or whatever. And if he did, who would believe him? Because the unicorns again have galloped off at this point. All they see is a grisly murder scene with two blood-spattered people, and they think, "Hey, maybe it was those guys." As perhaps they might, with the only two left standing in this case.
Unicorn's ass, a funny story. Get in the car. Yeah, exactly. Which, yeah, that is maybe the weakest bit of writing right there, because it's like, come on, like really, y'all just arrested the. Come on, really. But it does set up a great final scene where they're driving down the mountain. The Ridley and Elliot are in the back of a squad car, but to their rescue, the cavalry show up in the form of the Unicorn family once again, who just proceed to just tear into the cars like
in a very ACAB type manner. These unicorns are galloping at speed in the forest alongside the cop car, and the people that see them are, of course, Elliot and Ridley. As they look up and they sort of understand what might be happening here next. But it's also just a kind of odd ending scene in the sense where the unicorn does ultimately knock the cop car off the road, as Elliot and Ridley are like, why don't we just duck and cover a little bit? Maybe we see what's going to happen here. And it doesn't necessarily show us that the cops are dead or whatnot, but it sure does seem like a we're taking witnesses off the board move by these unicorns.
Yeah. No, these unicorns, again, they just tear things up. They don't care. They just go on a romp and stop.
No, we have no reason to know why these...
And when the popo shows up, they don't care. No, they're just gonna tear into him like it's Mad Max, and that's just where the film ends. It's
because the cop justice definitely defers to the divine justice part of this stuff.
Yeah.
Although the cops might be the outlier in the divine justice, I don't know that they necessarily did anything wrong in this instance besides, again, pursue a probable lead.
We don't really see what happens to them, but what happens to their cars doesn't look good. So that's for sure. So, but yeah, anyway, that's Death of Unicorn. I recommend it. I was entertained. I thought it was a fine film. Yeah.
I think it was a good movie. And when I looked earlier today on IMDb, it has slightly mixed reviews. It's sitting at a 6.3 out of 10 aggregate right now. And I probably would have pegged it at a 7, frankly, when we discussed. I thought it was a very good movie.
I probably would have given it a 7.
I don't know if
You
I'd
know,
call it great. It does have some of the A24 hallmarks where it does do music well and color well, but it's not the most A24 film I've
this
ever seen. I
it
guess I'd
it
say like
does not have it doesn't glow
hmm
like a stereotypical A24 film, and that's fine. I think it's great for a good production company to maybe branch out aesthetically, right? Not every film has to have the young, fresh, glowy neon look, and that's fine. That's not every film, you know. Um, I thought this film had an excellent cast. It had just kind of an embarrassment of talent in it. Paul Rudd, Jenny Ortega, Taya Leone, Richard Grant. It just kind of goes on and on. And they were quite good. The director, this is a first for this director, right?
Yeah, so let me talk Alex
So
Sharpman for a second. I both want to just talk a little bit about him, and then he has a quote that I really, really like about the movie when I was looking into it earlier today. This is his, as Tommy mentioned, this is his first directorial debut. He does have 20 to 30 something credits on IMDb, but the more notable films, when I scanned through, like The Witch, he's listed as additional crew. He did go to college with producer Lars Knudsen guy, who eventually goes on to co-found Parts and Labor Films with Ari Aster, a bigger
yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah,
And this
yeah,
film is done under that imprint or whatnot.
yeah, yeah.
And so he was part of that. He's been a writer on 4. He's been a producer on 20, and so he's really sort of seemingly learned the craft on this. And at this point, this is his big deal because he not only directed this, but he wrote this movie. And so this is his baby.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
he worked with Robert Eggers, like I said, on The Witch, and when he was developing Nosferatu type stuff. So I think he's learned his craft, and I do think this is a good step forward. It's not the most novel directorial debut I've ever seen, but it is he did well, I think.
Yeah. If I wouldn't say any particular part of the film was just weak as such, but for a film with good writing, I like the story. I thought it was well written. Just as far as a writer, very attentive to metaphorical and figurative elements and how to structure these and whatnot. I thought the writing was good. Has a great cast too. But I can imagine as a first time director having to direct Paul Rudd and Jenny Ortega and Richard Grant and Taya Leone would be intimidating. And I felt like in many ways there wasn't as strong a directorial presence in this film as there could have been, right? This is also a film with a lot of great metaphorical and figurative elements too, right? You have the two fathers with their competing notions of immortality, right? You have the various notions of purity and divine monsters. You have the trope of penetration, and you have class commentary and whatnot. And I thought that these elements kind of came through, but just not nearly as much as they could have, given how strong I thought the writing was. Like I thought the
hmm
writing kind of set all this up, and just the directing didn't quite serve it up. I don't know.
And it's a beautiful film in the sense of it's a beautiful backdrop between the nature wilderness, which is actually set in Hungary. It's supposed to be the Canadian Rockies, which it certainly could be. It had me fooled in that regard.
Yeah,
And the beautiful mansions and stuff. And so it wasn't
yeah,
like there was a lot of crazy shots or sort of like cinematography going, but it's a very well done and beautiful film all the same.
yeah,
The quote I mentioned that I would like to, it kind of pertains to the fact that the creature genre really does often come with significant like anti-capitalist subtext. If you think about like
yeah,
Jurassic Park or to Alien to Jaws type
yeah,
stuff, this is very much in that same vein.
mm,
And he
yeah,
has a quote that's like, "I think to truly make a unicorn movie, you need to engage with sure the lore, but the emotional weight that they carry for people, the sense of their symbolism, in a way that speaks to what they are." But also, I don't know why they've resonated with humans over 2 millennia. Because if they were just these monsters in the woods, we wouldn't have these emotional associations with them, that they're symbolic of something we can't attain. They're symbolic of our own corruption. They're symbolic of the thing that, to our great shame, we destroy as a society. And I think that speaks to us all.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that's very well said in the sense, and
yeah, yeah.
it gives a lot of context into what this movie was supposed to be in his mind, what he was writing from and stuff, and what he was pulling from and his influences and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah. No, yeah, it's kind of evoking the human condition, as it were. Sure. Yeah. No, I agree. And bringing up aliens, yeah, I'd say this definitely is kind of in that vein of Aliens, where a creature is discovered, but the worst of human greed takes over, unfortunately, and disaster ensues. Right, with Ridley in Death of a Unicorn, Ripley in Aliens being she is the divine, the virgin in that film, the pure final girl of that creature film. Sigourney Weaver and Jenny Ortega have very similar characters in a lot of ways.
Which I'm
now that I
glad
think
you
about
brought
it,
up, because I don't know
yeah,
if you saw or remember the trailer from this, but it pulls from a scene we see in the movie, of course, but it from Alien 3, I think, is the one, but it shows Ridley, or rather, in this
Ripley,
movie, which is one letter off from
yeah,
Ripley, where
yeah.
the unicorn is getting real close to her face in that exact homage to the
You're
alien
right.
scene.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no mistake, you
Yeah.
hit the
You're
ball
right.
out of the park right before me, because I had that on deck here. If something of a...
It was kind of like a little winking gesture. But yeah, you're right. It was a bit more than that. Now that we talk about it, there was something a bit more about evoking Alien, in this as kind of an homage. It's a bit more thorough homage, really. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, there you go. Cool.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah. I think that's most of what I have to say about this movie. I do think, because we can talk favorite parts, we can talk something of this, but I do want to say, I guess, the part of, why this cast was so great, at least, was that apparently they got Jenna Ortega the week before Wednesday premiered, before she really kind of shot in the stratosphere and
Okay.
became like
Yeah.
a gigantic name and whatnot. 'Cause this was 2023, they did it in.
Okay.
And so who knows who else we would have gotten if perhaps they couldn't have signed her to that so
Yeah.
soon.
And that actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was kind of wondering, because like this film is a good film, great cast, but after the wild success of, like, that she had with Wednesday, it would be in many ways kind of not a step down, but just kind of like a side grade.
Mhm.
Not exactly like the kind of launch vehicle you'd expect for an actress coming off of a successful show like
Right.
that.
Perhaps a
Yeah.
bigger name director might be in a project she would go for,
Yeah.
or something in that
But
regard.
then again, it did have Paul Rudd as the lead. So this film had a great cast for it just being kind of a cute horror film. So it, like, casting, the casting agent really really nailed it on this one for sure. So yeah, good job.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
extremely well done in the casting department. There's not a lot of things I can just overly be critical about in the movie. Again, I think there were several things they could have done to elevate it, perhaps, but it really was. Yeah, I think a good 7, 7.5, a 10, something perhaps.
Yeah, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10 for sure. Not the best film I've ever seen, but certainly not the worst. And it was entertaining. It was worth talking about for an hour or so for sure, and maybe even more to say about it. So there you go. Like, that's solid 7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and given this is a new podcast, we're trying stuff out. We'll see what
Yes.
sticks in all this regard. A segment I had an idea for was let's talk the gayest part of this movie and the straightest part of this movie.
Ooh, what is, well, okay, the gayest one is just every act of penetration by a unicorn, or do you have something more specific in mind?
Well, I mean, it's just a film about unicorns, frankly. That's the big low-hanging
Yes.
fruit here, or
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah. It is also just that too. The unicorn steaks, they have a rainbow glow to them. I mean, geez.
Shep keeps inviting him to the hot tub. I don't know. Those are really my two things: the unicorn
Yeah.
and the hot tub type thing.
Yes.
What might you posit as the straightest part of this film, if you have to?
Ooh, the straightest one. Let me.
I'll go first if you need. Yeah, in
Oh,
this
please,
regard.
please,
If,
yeah.
I've been in cars with a straight person that has done this, and the straightest part to me was definitely beating an animal to death with a tire iron that was injured in an act of mercy, which
Yeah.
I guess, but
Yeah.
I've never seen a gay person do that, mind you. Like, just not to generalize too hard. I'm sure some gay person would love to, not love to, but has beaten something to death in an act of mercy. But it just doesn't reek to me of that. It is a very masculine moment. It's a very
I think also having a bloody red unicorn steak is definitely like a straight thing. I think huffing unicorn horn, that would be the gay equivalent right there.
That's very
Like-
true. Yeah,
like
yeah. That's
definitely.
the circuit party scene versus
if you
the...
could press that unicorn horn into like a pill shaped, then even better. Like, or like, I don't know, like unicorn blood poppers or something. If you could,
You could
Ooh.
certainly market that to the gays. Absolutely.
I'm gonna
Of,
be rich.
some
Oh my
unicorn
God.
video head cleaner, you might say. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I hope no one steals that idea. What a great idea for Poppers, Unicorn Blood. What a great brand name. No one steal that.
Yeah.
Good.
Just snort the rainbow, right?
Snort. No one steal that. This is my retirement plan, okay? So, good.
Well,
all
Tommy, is
right,
there anything
well,
else you want to say about the movie? Any favorite part you want to dig in on? I think
No,
we're about tapped on this.
I think we're good. But if we miss anything, do please let us know. We're going to have contact information about the best way to reach the show with your questions or comments or your hate mail. Please, definitely your hate mail.
Yeah.
Please.
We do
Um,
thrive on that. We love
yes.
feedback.
Yes.
But for
Uh,
sure, yeah.
but,
Hit us up.
But this has been Video Head Cleaner with Tommy and
Kyle.
yes. Next time, what do we think we're going to review? I think we're going to review Drop.
Drop, yeah. An
Yeah.
upcoming film here.
We might be able to get into a pre-screening, just maybe. So we might have a maybe early-ish episode for Drop. Maybe
It looks
we'll
like a good
see.
film where somebody's out on a date and then their son gets
Yeah.
kidnapped and they have to figure out who's texting them within the restaurant to do horrible things, which the first one is on the trailer to kill the person they're on a date with. So I think we'll have fun with that one too.
Yes.
It might be no less bloody than this one.
But I have no idea, so we'll be pleasantly surprised one way or another. But
But this is Death of Unicorn, and yeah, we recommend you go see it. It was a good movie. And
I definitely recommend it. Till next time, everyone.
till next time, bye.